Good afternoon. My name is Ces Butner, and I am honored to serve as your president of the Rotary Club of Oakland, the third oldest Rotary Club of some 35,000 Rotary clubs throughout the world. I'd like to welcome you to our 5,303rd club meeting. For over 111 years, we have welcomed Rotarians and guests from around the world to our club meetings. We continue to do so virtually. So if you're a visiting Rotarian, or if you're a guest of a Rotarian, please let us know by typing your name and the name of your club into the chat box, located at the center bottom of your screen as indicated by the red arrow on the slide you're viewing now. I think you're viewing it now. By doing so, we will be able to recognize you later in this meeting. Also, we recommend that all participants view this Zoom meeting by clicking the speaker view button located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And if you have comments throughout the meeting or questions for the speaker, please use the chat button at the bottom of the screen for that as well. And now, for our thought for the day, we would have Rotarian Keith Rotary on. I told him I wouldn't mess up his last name. Uriarte. There we go. Keith.
Very good. The thought for the day is about the impact on others by listening. Last Friday, my wife and I were walking our neighborhood, gathering signatures for a petition. We came up to the son of one of our neighbors. We asked about his parents, and he began to tell us how his mother had fallen ill suddenly. For about 10 minutes, we listened to his commitment to his mom and his dad, and how he wished he could do more. As he ended, he thanked us for listening. He said that by allowing him to describe his inner thoughts about the caring for his mom and the emotional support for his dad, we helped give him strength to move forward. Particularly in these challenging times, there is so much we can learn and help others by simply listening.
It's a very good message. Thank you so much for that, Keith. Because we want to remain grounded and focused, we begin our meetings by reciting our vision, which is, everybody together now, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Last week, our community service chair, David Kittner, laid out his theme and goals for community service committee for the year of 2021 that included finding unique ways to do service projects in this COVID-19 pandemic year, which we had an opportunity to discuss in breakout rooms. I'd like to thank all that participated in that effort. And if you still have info or ideas for community service, please let David, Pat, or me know, and we'll get right on them. This week, we're going to give our ED, Pat Williams, a chance to close her books on committee signups and do something of the similar kind of discussion in our breakout rooms. Also, we have several important announcements and a fabulous speaker. So let's get started with the meeting with former District Governor Ed Jelen. Do you have any visiting Rotarians for us?
President Ces, I am depressed and disappointed to have to report that for the very first time in this recent series of meetings, nobody has checked into our chat box. So maybe next week.
Well, that's all right. Well, you have another announcement, I think, that is very apropos that you could make at this time.
Oh, the one we talked about earlier.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, this is great news for all of us Rotarians in our organization. In the Rotary year 2022-2023, Rotary International is going to have its first female international president, which is just absolutely great news. Her name is Jennifer Jones. She's a member of the Rotary Club of Windsor, Roseland, Ontario in Canada. She has visited our district. I have met her. I was very impressed with her. She's going to be a wonderful president, and this is, I think, terrific news for our organization. Thank you, Ces.
Yes, that's great news for our organization. The first female president. I know it's been a long time coming for Rotary, and now we cannot say it's a bunch of old white men anymore. We say we got a woman to represent us internationally. We're inducting a new member today, which will be introduced by his sponsor, Rotarian Joycey Mack. Joycey Mack, do we have 2 interesting facts about our newest Rotarian member?
Okie doke, the most interesting fact. Well, first of all, he has a business in Jack London Square, the home of chicken and waffles. Can I get 3, please?
Go ahead, 3, you can have 4.
Okay, thank you. First of all, let me start all over. Our guest, our newest Rotary member, a very good friend of mine, is Derek Johnson. Derek is the owner of the chicken and waffle restaurant at Jack London Square. He was born and raised in Oakland. He attended Fisk University, and his passion is serving our Oakland community by feeding the homeless. He serves on numerous committees. He also mentors prisoners from San Quentin. So I proudly present to you our newest member, Derek Johnson.
All right, Derek.
Yes.
There he is. Derek, do you have anything to say?
I'm here. Yes. Thank you for having me. And Joycey, thank you for that introduction. I was a member a while back. My aunt Jacqueline Phillips used to attend all the meetings, so I'm very happy and excited to be back. You can probably see behind me, I'm also, my staff runs the restaurant, so that gives me all the time to now I'm a city council candidate for the at-large position. So yes, I'm excited to be here and to get involved, and it was great meeting with you yesterday. And I look forward to doing even beyond in more community service.
All right, Derek, we are happy that you have chosen to join us. And please know that your family and friends are always welcome to join us and to participate in our projects and events.
Okay. So can I ring the bell?
But yes, you can.
I'll ring the bell for Derek Johnson.
Bell rung.
Okay, thank you.
By accepting membership, you have adopted our vision, which is together we see the world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe in our communities and in ourselves. You also agree to conduct your affairs according to the Rotary 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? You will receive a Rotary pin, and we hope that you will wear it with pride and find pleasure and fulfillment by attending meetings, participating in our service activities, and practicing service above self, and by contributing to the Rotary Foundation and Oakland Rotary Endowment. You will also receive via mail a roster with your 300 of your newest best friends, and Rotary Made Easy handbook, your 4-way test, and our Centennial book, which documents 100 years of service and friendship in the third oldest club in the Rotary world, Oakland #3. Finally, when we return to live meetings, your red badge will be waiting on you, indicating your status as a new member. So now it is my pleasure and honor to induct you as our newest member of the Rotary Club of Oakland. Let's give our newest member a warm
Thank you.
Rotary welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Ces, if I may, we're not seeing your screen. Could you?
All
I think
right.
you're on the stop video.
Yes, I got it.
There you go.
I was didn't have a little problem here, but we got it fixed now. Welcome, Derek. You'll find it a very, very exciting times. Past President David Stein, I understand you have a special announcement to make regarding our future program.
President Ces and fellow Rotarians, The last week in August, our Thursday lunch meeting will be held on a Tuesday. That's right. Our meeting the last week in August will be Tuesday, August 25th. The program is a panel discussion entitled Inequality and COVID-19. COVID-19 is a global crisis that's not affecting everyone equally. The panel will examine how health, economic, and racial inequalities are converging during the pandemic and how we can create better outcomes for individuals, communities, and our nation. The three panelists are all nationally known. They are Dr. Mary Daly, who's the President and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, Dr. Anthony Eaton, who's the Senior Vice President of Healthy Communities with the California Endowment, and Dr. Carmen Rojas, who's the President and CEO of the Marguerite Casey Foundation and the founder of Workers Labs. The panel is going to be moderated by Robert Ogilvie, who is the Oakland Director of SPUR. And the program, just so everyone knows, the program will actually be recorded the Friday before that meeting. So if you have questions that you'd like the moderator to ask the panel, please email those questions to me and we'll get them to the moderator so he can try and work them into the discussion. Now we're going to ask all Rotarians to really go and actively promote this meeting because it's not every day you're going to get a chance to see speakers of this topic and of this caliber. The program will be aired for guests on our YouTube channel and you'll get more information on that. So again, mark your calendars and tell your friends, Tuesday, August 25th at 12:30 for a fantastic discussion on Under the Magnifying Glass, Inequality, and COVID-19.
Thanks so much, David. It's going to be a great meeting. I look forward to it, and we look forward to hearing more about it. Now, the Business Development Chair, Danny Ma, what have you got going?
Thank you, President Ces Butner. I'm Danny Mai. I'm the chair for Business Development Committee. I have another type of sponsorship. Our committee has a slogan called Shop Rotary. And the meaning of that is that basically is our definition of our that slogan is basically to promote Rotarians businesses. So what we do is we create a platform for you to promote your businesses. So, so we have two types of forum for you to promote your business. One is that you can, provide $250 to present your business at a Zoom meeting, and we give you 3 minutes to talk about your business. Second, you can promote your business through our club website, like this one right here with your company slogan and all the verbiage that you need. That goes for $350 per year. If you like, this is an example of it. All your sponsorship and all your company, including to our club, email list, as well as the Live Oak. In addition to that, if you want to get a package, you can save for $600. That's a saving $100 per year. If you want to do a package, you don't mind. Can you go back to the previous slide, please, Sandeepa? Yeah. So this is right here. So with the package of the platinum, you get both for $600 a year. But if you don't have a budget for it, then you can get a a la carte version of it, $250 and $450 for the club website and the Live Oak. So your next question might be is like, where does the money go? Well, for one, it the money helps provide the overhead costs of our club, which is, the wages, the salary, and the utility bills that the club has. In addition to that is that we can use that money to provide our mixer events. Before COVID-19 hit, we have personal mixers, once every 2 months, and we had a great turnout. Now with COVID-19, we can do it online. And, with that money, we can use that as we can create a virtual business expo coming up sometime in November, December. So stay tuned for that. This is the flyer that we had last year that we had at the mixer. So if you have any questions, my contact information is below. You can reach me but some of you have heard, some of my colleagues already from our committee reach out to you already. I will personally reach out to you as well in the coming weeks. So look out for that. But we appreciate you to support us and our club. And without your help, the BDC would not be in existence. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Danny. Appreciate that announcement, making sure everybody understands how important it is for business development to get off track this year and possibly have another fair that you could have, but it won't be quite like you had it last year because we're in a COVID situation right now. But anyway, who I have next? Michael Bruck. You got an announcement for us, I believe.
Well, thank you, President Ces. I have a special announcement for everyone this afternoon. Pat Williams, our wonderful executive director, will be retiring at the end of this year. That's December of 2020. Pat started her career with the Rotary Club of Oakland in March of 2014. She came to us with a background as an attorney, a nonprofit fundraiser, and active Oakland volunteer. She will leave us after 6.5 years of club progress and accomplishments. Pat helped lead the continued growth in membership and fundraising, assisted in negotiating the lease for the Rotary office and ballroom, and yes, organized the downsizing of the Rotary office. Most recently, Pat guided us through the COVID-19 challenges. Pat attended meetings of the club board, the ORE trustees, executive committee, club committees, task forces, as well as countless club events, both in person and on Zoom. I know that John Protopappas, Linda Chu, Linda Bosnaker, Sean Marks, Gudrun Dibdahl, and Peter Sherris and I relied on Pat for her wise input and advice on club issues and decisions. And I know that President Ces is continuing the strong relationship with Pat. Linda Bosnaker and CJ Hirschfield are leading the Executive Director Search Committee, and Pat has agreed to assist with the transition at such time as the new Executive Director comes on board. We will be able to thank Pat for her years of dedicated service to our club at a future meeting, and I expect that there will be no shortage of bell ringers at that time. I appreciate the opportunity to make this announcement since Pat joined us during my year as Rotary President. Pat, congratulations on your forthcoming retirement, and thank you for all your service to the Rotary Club of Oakland. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat, you want to say a few words or?
Sure, sure. Well, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Michael. Please know, all of you, how much I love this club. Recently, a member said that she'd never known a group of such caring, committed, supportive people. I totally concur with that, but I'd probably add the word fun too. I'll look forward to working with the lucky person who assumes my responsibilities near the end of this calendar year. But I have a lot to do over the next 4 months. And right now, we are focusing on committee signups. You, of course, may join or leave a committee at any time. However, we make a special push at the beginning of the President's year. That's when each committee maps its plan for the year. Having members join at this point helps the committee understand its resources and its person power, and it builds energy. We first sent the link to the committee sign-up form 2 weeks ago. I've included reminders and email messages in the Live Oak. I'll send the link again after this meeting. We ask every member, even if you're a committee chair, even if you've been on a committee forever, to please complete the form. If you're trying to decide on your committee selection, I'm happy to talk with you. Also, call the chairs of the committees you're considering. The sign-up form will be open through Monday, August 10th. At this point, 61 people have signed up on the form. President Ces and I would love to see that number doubled, maybe even tripled. So please sign up. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Pat. And Pat, we'll give them opportunity when we go to breakout rooms for, in addition to the general fellowship, for everybody to think about which committee do you want to sign up for. So we'll go to breakout rooms. Who's putting us in breakout rooms? Is that Jack or Susie or Sandeepa? Put us in the breakout rooms for about 6 minutes. We're back. Welcome back. I hope that was like sitting at your table at our in-person meetings. Please choose your committee and notify Pat so you can do your service above self for this 2021 year. Rotarian Winnie Williams, do us the honor of introducing our speaker, please, for today.
Thank you so much, President Ces. Hello, everyone. Melissa Jones, MPA, is the Executive Director of Bay Area Regional Health Inequities. She is passionate about creating the conditions that increase quality of life and make life more fair for more people. Her work focuses on the intersection of social determinants of health, social equity, and well-being. Her experience includes work in municipal government and nonprofits in the Bay Area's large and small cities. Melissa is an active community member at Oakland and also serves on the Association of Bay Area Government's Regional Planning Committee, which advises on regional planning issues. Melissa, I'm a very proud Rotary Club member, and I'm delighted to welcome you, and we're all looking forward to hearing from you today. Thank you for being here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Winter. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you for your interest in issues around homelessness, and Ces Butner for your leadership there. And I thought I talked a bit with Winter about what we're seeing right now in terms of homelessness and COVID-19 and the risks that are on their way. And I thought I'd frame a few items out for you. I shall begin. So BARHI is the coalition of the Bay Area's 11 governmental public health departments. Each county in the Bay Area has a governmental public health department. They've been more in the news than ever before with the response to COVID-19. And the city of Berkeley also has its own public health department. They founded BARHI to focus explicitly on the issues that are impacting health that are different than what you think of as going into the doctor's office. There's been a lot of research over time. BARHI was part of that early research. The World Health Organization has done very similar research on how much of our health depends on the living conditions we experience. And it's about 80% of our health. 20% of it happens in the doctor's office and opportunities for care. 20% happens in issues of access. And the rest of it happens before we end up there. And so BARHI is really focused on what happens before we end up in the doctor's office and what does that do, and how can we decrease the incredible differences in life expectancy we see across different populations of people, which span, depending on the county in the Bay Area, for the populations with the lowest life expectancy and those with the highest, between 10 and 17 years. So these are really big differences. These are the kinds of differences that got closed by mass immunization and mass sanitation, and now they're entirely predictable by issues of socioeconomic status. And so that's what we focus on. Now I know all across Oakland, you know, I'm a longtime Oakland resident, and I know people here are very concerned about the increases in homelessness that I think for many a few years ago suddenly became very visible and very, very shocking. And I want to talk a little bit about where that increase in homelessness was coming from pre-COVID-19, what the economic impacts of COVID-19 right now mean for us and what could be coming next, and what we can do to intervene. Next slide, please. Pre-pandemic, homelessness had become more about money than ever before. And so there's more homelessness, which people know when they see that sort of visible homelessness. And what people sometimes don't know and see, but is bearing out in the data and has been bearing out in the data over the series of the last few decades, is that homelessness is aging. And it's not that people are living longer on the street, it's that increasingly we see older people entering into homelessness for the first time. And I want to talk about the reasons that is, because it's different than the homelessness we've seen over time. It's more tied to affordability than it has ever been before, particularly on the West Coast. And it's highest for those with the lowest income or who live their lives making minimum wage. Next slide, please. I'm going to share with you a little bit of data from San Francisco because they've got the clearest data right now, but it's quite similar to data that's happening in research across the Bay Area. But the proportion of single homeless adults greater than 50 in San Francisco in 1990 was 11%. By 2003, it was 37%, and today it's about half. The median age for homelessness has increased between 1990 and 2003, a little bit more, about two-thirds of a year each year. And that's not about people getting older on the street. It's about a new population joining people on the street. And the median age of homelessness all across this country is expected to continue to rise. Next slide, please. The increases in homelessness that we're seeing are a new group of people who are homeless. And what brings them to the street is different than what we've seen before. It's a combination of what we've seen before, but quite different. We are more likely to see now, and in particular in Oakland, a driving population of the increase in homelessness are men, 50 plus, who have worked their whole lives, but have worked in minimum wage or low wage employment. And that tends to echo by race. And so we see a number of African-American men, 50 plus, living on the street for the first time. And they're living on the street for the first time because they're hitting a crisis point that's hitting around 50, 55. That crisis point tends to be a job loss, a marital breakdown, living with a spouse, sharing incomes, sharing housing costs in a very high cost housing market, stretching the dollars, illness, and particularly for people in manual labor, illness that means you can no longer work in the job that you've worked in before, or death of a spouse or partner. And so really what it's a symbol of is people who have been financially working hard, holding on, and just losing that last piece of safety net that was there for them. Next slide, please. The affordability crisis is acute now for those over 50 and over. And among renters age 50 and over, 30% are spending more than half of their income in rent and experiencing a severe housing cost burden. That has increased over time. And it's increased over time, not just for seniors, 50 plus, we'll say seniors, but it's 50 plus. And next slide. But it's actually a whole population scale problem, and it is by income. So we are seeing housing cost burdens across the Bay Area that are very, very intense. And so we've seen for household income, those who are earning less than $35,000 a year are rent burdened, 89% of those households. So that means 89%, almost 90% of people in that income band are stretched by housing cost. For those making 35 to 50,000, still fully 70% of those households in that income band across our region are housing stretched. And then even for those making into the 50 to 75,000 range, we're still at 40%. So we are at a place, and here's Alameda County's numbers, where somewhere between 50 and 30% of households, when you break it out by race, next slide please, are housing cost burdened. This is, again, all pre-pandemic. This is what the pandemic's economic shock is built on top of. And so the next slide shows the percentage of families, oops, sorry, false alarm. The next slide that was already showing for you all shows the percent of families who are rent burdened. And you can see that these are with children under 5. So you see these numbers here as well. And Alameda County's on your first line. Next slide, please. And so we have a really basic issue on housing that's increasingly crunched by COVID-19. And our basic issue is that the scale of our housing interventions do not match the vast gulf between housing costs and wages. Next slide, please. So 3 out of 4 at-risk renters don't get rental assistance. And so this is just a slide that shows that. Because sometimes I think people say, we've poured so much money into housing, or housing has been an issue for so long, or I feel like we've talked about it so much. We haven't talked about it at scale. And the problem right now with COVID-19 is the economic intensity and impact is at scale. It's at a scale like never before, and we were already in a weak spot around it. Back one slide, please. And so just to show you, 3 out of 4 at-risk renters aren't getting rental assistance already, pre-pandemic. Next slide, please. And in California, 22 units are available for every 100 extremely low-income households. So the gulf between what people are needing and what people have based on the high cost of housing in the Bay Area and in California is really quite a large one. Next slide, please. And people yet have been making it. They've been squeezing and making it, but because I come from the Coalition of Health Departments, I just want you to know what that's cost them. They're spending 1/3 less on food. It means on the months when, and more than ever, people's incomes are less predictable, right? Hourly wages go up and down, hours go up and down. And so on the weeks and months where hours have gone down and there's less money, they are spending less on food. And across the year, that looks like 1/3 less on food. They're saving on food to keep a roof over their heads. And that is a very tenuous place that at some point, that ability to squeeze breaks. They're spending 5 times less on medical care for chronic conditions. And they're holding their medical care until they get the earned income tax credit, right? And that becomes the way that they're able to get into tax credit or the extra things they need. Next. And so we have a very unstable relationship to housing in terms of cost that's pre-existed for COVID-19. And the problem is that all of the sort of shortcuts, financial shortcuts, the ways that people have made housing work to not end up on the street, and what we know about people who have ended up on the street, having that one last crisis that was the crisis that placed them there, we are now in the COVID-19 moment. And I just want to share with you the percentage change between January and June for earnings in low-income workers. This is the group of people who are at 79% of them housing cost burdened, and their income has just, it's been a nosedive. Next. And so there are a series of solutions on the table that are all quite difficult, I think, that I am going to open up to a conversation with us today. But there are a few things that are happening, and I thought it would be helpful to have the context of the economic area that we're coming from in the conversation about what might come next, so that we can think about what comes next at scale. So 100% of the Bay Area right now is covered by eviction moratoriums related to COVID-19 that were an acknowledgement that 79%, 70%, 40% of the lowest income households were already housing cost burdened walking into the pandemic, and that the pandemic had really meant that so many people lost wages and jobs. The eviction moratoriums were designed to stem the initial possibility of a huge surge in homelessness at a time when the most important intervention was shelter at home. The next piece are solutions now for back rent that works for tenants and for landlords, right? Something that is a solution that doesn't place people on the incredible harm that we see when they end up on the street from health and other, we see that harm in health, we see it in a decrease in life expectancy, and that does something that works for landlords as well. And it'll be interesting, I think, to talk to this group about that. The next is getting people back to work safely, right? One of the strategies, and I think in the media, the conversation has made it sound that it's shelter at home or have people at work. And actually what we want is more and more people going to work and going to work safely, right? And there are a couple of strategies for that. One, we know from our contact tracing that people need paid leave. So when they think they're sick or they are sick, they're staying home, that they're not bringing COVID-19 into the workplace and causing an outbreak. And there are a number of places where people don't have the ability to financially stay home, and they were already in these housing cost burden brackets where they then make choices around needing finance or staying home. The other thing is about the protective equipment and things that they need to be safe in the workplace. Now, so many people have already been working. The economy never fully closed. Essential workers have continued to work. They tend to be majority and disproportionately Black and brown. And if we can figure out strategies that make sure they're working safely, we can replicate them across industry. And then we have some long-term housing strategy to do. We have convened for San Francisco Foundation over the course of the last several years, a housing strategy table focused on equity that's advanced a series of strategies statewide for housing, and I'm happy to talk more about those. So I see questions coming in on the line. I can't both, I'm not yet the multitasker on Zoom who can answer all of them as I'm speaking, but
we'll handle that, Melissa, at the end. We got it covered.
Great, but those are my remarks to just frame for us where we were pre-crisis, how much the new surges in homelessness were about a final crisis event that was the last way to hold on to housing before people lost it, and how much right now we're in a moment where many people are in that crisis event. So I'll close there. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. We'll, like I said, we'll handle the questions at the end. We have a process that we go through here.
Okay.
Jack, is it you that is handling the questions this week? Who's doing
Today it's going to be Susie, so I'll let Susie go ahead and start fielding the questions for you, but thank you for your time.
Susie.
Okay, I just unmuted myself. All right, so your first question is from David Stein. He said, what percentage of the homeless have either mental health or drug issues, and how do we address their particular needs?
I don't have the percentages with me today, but the way that we divide this is in a couple of different areas. So there's a level of severity that we think about both for mental health and for substance use and abuse issues. And there are people who prior to homelessness have had different levels of severity, and we can see those levels of severity change over time with being on the street. There's a couple of ways that people who are in that situation can be supported in housing. One is supportive housing programs. There are many that are called Housing First. Housing First programs are designed for people who are in active need of treatment or other kinds of drug treatment services, and so that they're in their housing so that it's easier to adhere to a program. But that they aren't clean and sober centers. For those of us who remember those from 20 years ago, they're a different kind of housing. So there's that group. There's another group that needs supportive housing that is more a mental health strategy of housing, where you can have, for high severity, kind of group home-like settings. And for those that are lower severity, ways, what we call scattered site ways, where you have somebody who visits them and who works with them over time as they need something.
Okay. Next question.
I have a question from Fred Morse. Melissa, can you comment on zoning regulations?
In which part? In terms of the building of new affordable housing?
I'm sure that's what Fred Morris was talking about.
Yes. Yeah, so there's been some work to improve zoning regulations to make it easier to build housing. So there are a couple of things that make it harder to build affordable housing, and there are some things that make it more expensive to build affordable housing. And there are a range of things. So there are zoning requirements, there are public processes around, communication with neighbors and decision-making around when something is approved or not approved. And when it's more predictable that something can be approved, it can cost less in planning fees, attorney fees, and everything else. And then there's also issues around how long it takes to get into the development process. And so there's been some work, particularly at the state level, to talk about by right, basically by right development, right? So if you fit inside the zoning criteria, that you have a sort of automatic process, particularly for affordable housing, in order to get more housing built.
Next question, Susie.
Okay, Seth wants to know what percentage of the homeless are families?
I only have regional numbers. Let me see. I can send you an Oakland number.
Well, just give us a general number there. I was trying to ascertain how big of the problem is really families that are there together, a parent and a child.
So there's different kinds of homelessness. And so there's homelessness that we see on the street, and then there's what we would call homelessness that exists in cars and in people's homes.
Yes, yes.
So what tends to happen is that families tend to be in the second bucket of homelessness, and so they tend to go from their home, the loss of a home, into a family member's home, which is what we call couch surfing, and then into their cars when that no longer works, where you've stayed with enough family members or enough people that you no longer have a place to stay. And that often happens because people, we all have limits on how many people can stay in our home, right? So people will have someone stay in their home for a while. We have both, we have personal limits on that, but also many renters have formal limits on that, and they particularly if they are also marginally housed, are very careful about not ending up in a place where they could also be put out of their housing. And so they can say, you can stay with me for 3 days, but then you have to go. It can't look like you live here. And so people then start to rotate around in that way. So those numbers are a little less clear because of that. And so there's actually a debate you've probably seen in Oakland about those numbers. And that's the debate. When you see that debate.
That's why I asked the question.
Oh, okay. When you see that debate about like there's a 2,000 person span on that debate, that's what they're trying to capture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question.
Okay, next question. Jesse Schmidt wants to know how successful the Tough Shed program has been and how sustainable is it for the future?
So the Tough Shed program, so Tough Sheds are not permanent housing, right? So I will say that. And I think, from a public health perspective, we want people in permanent housing that they're sure they can stay in. There's a whole lot of things that happen for mental health when that is true. And so programming that gets people off the street into safe space is good, because what we know is the longer people are on the street, the increase in victimization they see is much, much higher. That increase in victimization can correspond to increases in substance use and increases in other kinds of mental health issues. And so it's really important to have a safety net. And I think the Tough Sheds is designed to be part of that safety net. And we need to exit people into permanent housing that they know is theirs. Because one of the things we know, especially about the newest folks who are who have moved into homelessness, is these are people who have lived in their home for a long time. And so they have been treated by the doctor for high blood pressure or hypertension or, those kinds of things. And they have medicines they're used to taking. And they've been in a solid place where they can predict and plan and do that. And when they end up on the street, there's so many things that are going on, so many things on their mind, that often, even if they have access to care, they're not on regular and regimented routines to take care of those health issues. And they're older. And so what we know from a public health perspective is what that has meant for people is that they die sooner on the street than people who have been on the street longer. And that's because certain things that you've had controlled prior, once you uncontrol them, it's actually a higher risk for your health. And I think a lot of us have probably seen and know that for our own families. And so having strategies that give people some level of control is good. And we need strategies that are more permanent. I don't know if that's a way to understand it, but I think the issues of scale are particularly about that for the Tough Sheds.
Next question, Susie.
Okay, so Peter Sherris is asking if an increase in the minimum wage from $15 to $20 an hour would be helpful.
Yeah, I think wage increases are helpful. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean the gulf we have right now between the cost of housing and the wages that people are making is very, very large. And if you have 3 people in a minimum wage earning household all getting that kind of increase, it starts to add up. And what we do know is that for minimum wage households, they are living doubled up, tripled up, quadrupled up. And actually, that is part of the experience with COVID-19 and social isolation that we're dealing with now across the region. Yeah, we think that a lot of the increases in numbers of the sort of disproportionality we're seeing in COVID-19 Latinx people and African Americans. For Latinx people, both. There are issues around employment and safety and employment. And then particularly for the Latinx community, for not being able to self-isolate once you have it, because you're sharing a bathroom, you're sharing a kitchen, and you may be sharing a bedroom with multiple people.
Okay, we got one more question, and then
Okay,
I'll
I'm
put
gonna- I'm going to combine a couple of them. One is, with all the empty lots and empty buildings throughout the region, is there a way to improve how quickly we can repurpose those? And the other one is, how quickly can we get affordable housing built?
So Oakland has some choices there. Oakland could make decisions to prioritize and fast track housing in those ways. So that is a choice that could be made.
That's the politicians have to decide to do that though first.
That's right, but I'm sure
I want to ask. I see the last question that was asked was from Greg Knight. I want to say that from a public health perspective, why does Oakland allow encampment trash to reach crisis levels to where it is blocking sidewalks and streets? Why not provide dumpsters and pick up the home for the homeless?
Yeah. I mean, there needs to be a strategy from a public health perspective to deal with trash and sanitation, because that is one of the fundamental things we have known for public health over many years. And like I said, it's one of the fundamental investments, public infrastructure investments, that transformed our life expectancy.
Yeah.
100 years ago.
That's the number one problem I feel, at least anyway, then with the homeless encampments is the trash. It'd be one thing to be homeless, it's another to have the trash, which creates the public health really crisis for everybody else walking around past it. And I would think that the COVID-19 might spread easier and with that kind of situation. How is it affecting it?
Yeah, well, I think, and even more than trash, the ability to wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, keep your space clean, those kinds of things are really challenged by homelessness. And so, there is a program that's helped place homeless people in temporary housing during the pandemic. And so that program has provided housing units, motel units, other units for people so that they could be off the street. And actually, you probably have noticed around Oakland that there are fewer people on the street right now than have been.
Well, that's a good thing. If we can get them off the streets, even if we're putting them in the hotels and everything. Thank you, Melissa, for being our speaker today. Everybody give her a round of applause. Virtually, anyway, we can do it that way. This year, our club is making the homeless crisis in Oakland a priority. To that end, and as our gift to you for being our speaker for the day, in your honor, we are making a donation to support our unhoused residents in Oakland. Additionally, we would like to give you a centennial book, which documents 100 years of service and friendship in the third oldest club in the Rotary world, Oakland #3. Written by our very own Rotarian, Linda Hamilton. So now, Susie, do we have any bell ringers that we're going to announce? Or is that Sandeepa? Who's running?
I've got bell ringers.
All right, what we got?
Joycey Mack, Ken Benson, Bob Brecker, Ka Creation, Daniel Chang, Robert Kidd, Dudley, Mike Morse, Linda and Jim Bossenecker, Joe Goralka, Fred Morse. Uh-oh, I can't read my own writing. Oh, Georgia Richardson, Linda Chow, and Karen Freeman.
Oh, those bell ringers. And those bell ringers were for?
It's Linda Chu. Yep.
Those bell ringers were for Pat, I assume. Yes, Susie?
Yes, except Joycey Mack.
Okay, they were for Pat. And Pat, we love you.
President says there are more coming in. Harold now says he wants to ring the bell.
All right.
What does the bell ring mean, President says?
Oh, well, bell ring, as everybody that's not a Rotarian knows, is a $100 donation to the Oakland Rotary Endowment. And those are
Fred Morris's bell was for the speaker today, Melissa.
Ah, good. One for the speaker.
Yeah.
And her own vote just rang the bell.
Yeah.
And
So,
Joyce's bell ring was for Derek.
oh, got it. All right. Rotarian Carla Betts, will you tell us about next week's speaker?
Happy to. Am I on?
Oh, past president, excuse me, Carla Betts. I got to give you the proper salutation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just want to let you know that next week we have Dr. Joel Parrott, President and CEO of the Oakland Zoo. We have all been worrying and wondering what's been going on at the zoo. And last week, the best happened. The zoo opened. So now they're open for business. The Oakland Zoo is foremost in the United States and also very involved in global conservation projects. Joel will be addressing that next week, the projects that the Oakland Zoo is involved in, and especially those happening during this time of COVID. So don't miss it. Time for Joel next week.
Thank you, Carla.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Keith, for the day. And thank you, Wendell, for introducing our fabulous guests. And thank you, Joycey, and welcome new member Derek Johnson. And finally, thank you, Pat Williams, for all you have done for number 3 for the past 6 years. Make the club join me in wishing you the best in retirement whenever, but you still got work to do before then. We'll make sure we know that. I'd like to end this meeting as usual, and that's the way it went at the 55,303rd club meeting on August the 6th, 2020, in Oakland Rotary number 3, the 3rd oldest Rotary club in the world. Everyone remember, Rotary opens opportunities for service above self. And for now, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.